come up short 30-16 in Baltimore. Lose by a couple touchdowns, gentlemen.
Yeah, a tough, frustrating loss, right? Especially with Lamar Jackson out, MVP out, Tyler Huntley, the backup is in. The Ravens find a way to score 30 points. The question all along was, what are the Chicago Bears without the takeaways, right? What kind of team are they if they can't take the ball away? We saw that tonight. The Ravens hold the Bears the first time under 20 points, right? In the last 4 games, Pat, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns for Caleb Williams. We're seeing a little regression on him going through his progressions, him being a little late, him getting the ball in the end zone. Offense got to find a way to score early. Really frustrating game today because one you thought they could steal with Tyler Huntley starting for quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, but Bears offense and defense just they don't do enough to win the game.
Yeah, it's just a reality check is what it feels like to me. Like we enjoyed that 4-game run, which was nice. But like you said, they lost to a backup quarterback, or you can even call him a third-string quarterback because he was behind Cooper Rush as well. Just really disappointing. You know, the game starts out, and we're all excited because they drive down there twice, and they still have red zone issues. And that's been a discussion the last few weeks. Even though with all the turnovers, you were expecting some of those wins to be a little bit bigger and better, but they're still having the red zone issues. They have 6 points in the first 2 drives. Way too many penalties. That's what happened the first 2 games we were talking about. There were still drippings of penalties or droppings of penalties through the game, the winning streak. But again, you talked about, having the turnovers. That changes the game. He had 11 for 79 yards, 0 takeaways. You talked about that. Caleb being late. Special teams play, I'll talk about it. They played very poorly.
Yeah.
Their kickoff return team was bad. The bad alignment penalty for the punt team on Torrey Taylor's punt that was down to the 1. They ended up on like the 22 or 23-yard line when they had to kick again. The Ravens pin them down on the 2-yard line. I think that ends up in a punt. The other question is, where was DeAndre Swift? We heard he was injured all week.
Yes.
Why was he not used more? Maybe that was the answer. He truly is injured. I thought maybe they were kind of veteran day rests, but maybe that wasn't the thing. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. But you gave up 30 points to a third-string quarterback, guys. You can't do that.
It was one of the things that was very interesting. One of the things that was very interesting, I think, is that we talked before the game about all Caleb Williams had to do was outplay the quarterback that he was facing. And, the reality is he did not.
No.
And I don't know where you put that. I don't know how to feel about it because we felt he didn't have a great game last week. And that's okay. They're going to solve some things. Things are going to work out. And somehow you had a guy in Huntley who actually had better statistics, a better game, produced a lot more points than the Bears were able to.
Right, and that was the warning signs last week. That's why people were so worried about the way they played the game, right? And we talked about in pregame, but he did make enough plays to keep the run game open, right? He did keep it where Staley, the New Orleans Saints defense coordinator, stayed in 2 high safeties, and the run game took over the game and the takeaways.
Yes.
And we kept saying, okay, if there's no takeaways and they can slow the run game and they make Caleb throw the ball to beat him, what does it look like? Right, and tonight we saw with a pretty bad interception, Monangai open in the flat, still try to force it to Roma Dunze. Cornerback drives in the ball, gets the interception. So we know that there's growing pains yet in this offense in getting to learn what Ben Johnson wants him to do. But today for Caleb, again, just a continuation of the last 3 or 4 games where not great games by him. Now, the team was winning, so you were saying, well,
sure,
he is doing enough to win football games. Defense also without their cornerbacks, right? Without all their starting board cornerbacks. Kyler Gordon going IR. Jalen Johnson IR. Tyreke Stevenson out. They find a way now. They have to, Dennis Allen has to scheme to keep these guys so they don't just run by them in the secondary. Opens up the run game a little bit for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I just think overall for Caleb, and I was, saying how excited I was for him, I'm disappointed. Disappointed to see the way he came out and played after a week last week where he talked about where he needed to improve, what he needed to do, and I was expecting to see a little bit better. All those numbers of the Ravens, I just swiped them off my iPad, but they're all 30 and 29, 28, whatever across the board defensively that you thought maybe today was the day that you win the game because of Caleb. He would go out there and perform and produce, and he just didn't. And he had a quarterback rating of 77.2. You were talking about Tyler Huntley at a 116.9. He did get outplayed by a third-string quarterback, a career journeyman that outplayed the number 1 pick in the NFL going against the defense that was ranked as low as they were. They did have an extra week prepare, but I still don't care. I mean, those numbers are true, right, of the Ravens. They don't get after the quarterback, which I thought was going to help Caleb, but he just struggled all day. So it's just disappointing overall in the play of Caleb.
The other thing is they begin a drive. They get the ball to begin the game. There's a penalty on the return. Like, I know you mentioned 11 penalties for 79 yards. 11 penalties.
Yes, again.
On the road. That's not, no takeaways, 11 penalties. All you need is to hear those two statistics. They lost the turnover battle 1-0, and they had 11 penalties. I know it's 79 yards, and the opponent has 6 penalties for 45 yards. It's just and then they had a penalty on the first drive. It's just frustrating to see the continuation of what is a major issue, which is the Bears are guys, you're 7 games into your season. It is not the start of the season. This isn't the first month of the season. You are into an NFL season. You count the preseason games. It's about a halfway point when you think about playing football. They shouldn't have this penalty issue going on.
No, and the focus has to be there throughout the whole year, especially at this point of the season, right? The point where you're getting a little tired in there, guys are getting a little banged up, a little beat up, and you have to come in every day and really work on the small things and the details it takes to win football games, especially on the road versus a desperate team like the Ravens. And we talked about how good John Harbaugh is at coaching, right? And that they were going to break some tendencies going into this game and make adjustments and make it hard for the Chicago Bears to win this football game. And we kept saying, okay, if you don't have the takeaways and you keep having these penalties and you keep giving up these yards and these big plays and you're not scoring touchdowns on offense, then what are you, right? And today we saw, well, the Chicago Bears, the Ravens put 30 points on you. You only score 16. You get beat pretty bad in Baltimore. So the Bears got to go back, like you're saying, Mully, knock the penalties off, can't throw the interceptions, right? Find ways to get the ball in the end zone and keep the other team from moving the ball slowly down the field and then punching it in.
Yeah, and you can play the what-if game, too. What if Lamar Jackson actually played?
Oh, my God.
How many points you giving up there?
They'd have doubled that total, don't you think? It might have been a record.
Yeah, it would have been. The thing is, guys, with all the stuff here on my post-game notes is everything they've been harping on. Red zone issues. I'm going to go back to it. Not putting it in. They could have been up 14-0.
Yes.
That changes the feeling of the game, right? So that's an issue they haven't fixed. Well, we kind of covered over it with the crazy wins that have been the last 4 weeks or how they've been winning the last 4 weeks with the turnovers. And then the penalties as well, 11. You cannot do that. You talk about details and being a good team, you can't do that. Those are two things that you just cannot do if you're not going to get the takeaways.
You want some good news? I have a piece of good news.
Oh, right on.
It's not necessarily Bears related, but it is.
Postgame's only an hour?
The New York Jets got their first win of the season, beating the Bengals 39-38.
Wow.
Can you believe they came back and won that game? And Justin Fields, former Bears quarterback, started that game because there was an injury. Remember, he had been benched, and the owner had badmouthed him. It's just unbelievably amusing because the Bears play the Bengals. Now, again, they scored 38 points with Joe Flacco at quarterback. But it's such a weird thing, the NFL, where you look at these teams and everybody thought Baltimore was on their way to the Super Bowl, and then they go 1-5, and now they somehow get out of the doldrums against the Bears, which is all we really care about. But, you look at their schedule and you think, wow, they're really in trouble here because they're going to have to face Lamar Jackson, followed by Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's out, and now they ended up losing a game after making that trade for Flacco, and you thought for a second, wow, they're going to score a lot of points against the Bears.
Right.
But apparently they're going to allow a lot of points too.
Well, yeah, and the thing that worries you is this Baltimore defense was giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards.
Yes.
Right, and we don't go out there and get a bunch of points. They get a little healthier. Obviously, going to the game, we don't have our cornerbacks, right?
Yes.
We lose our defensive linemen during the game, Shamar Turner, Dominic Robinson. So you lose some depth there on defense, but and that probably not explains, but you can at least say to yourself, okay, that's why you got 30 points.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
But when you look at the offense, you wonder who's coming to help us.
Right.
Right. The only thing we'd have is we have to get better. We have to get better on offense, and that's why the coach is here. That's why all those draft picks are here, and they need to grow into this offense. And as you're saying, Pat, 2 good drives to start the game, but again, red zone problems.
Yeah, 6 points.
Right, 6 points. So it's just you're just worried about that offense without all the takeaways like we've been talking about, right? And then, okay, you see it today, and Baltimore is now a 2-5 team.
Yeah.
Right, and that's who you just lost to on the road without their MVP quarterback, 30-16.
Right, by 14 points.
Yes.
Which is, this is terrible. Today was the day I said the Bears, I thought they could score 31 points. I think the Ravens were giving up 32 points, something points a game, and I thought today was the day the offense was going to carry the team. This would, like you said, the DBs are out. Okay, maybe they're going to score some points over there with the Ravens. Let's see what Caleb can do with this offense against this, 30th ranked defense in the NFL, but they didn't do it. They felt really, really, really short, we talked a little bit during the game, like what is going on? You couldn't put your finger on it. There was a whole bunch of things that were going on. Everything looked bad. There was some good runs here, good screens here, bad runs here, bad penalties, bad throws, interceptions. It just did not look cohesive. It just didn't look like what you want to see in a Ben Johnson offense with more than a couple weeks into the season.
And in fairness, we knew that DeAndre Swift was on the injury list at the beginning of the week. And I saw this morning that Adam Schefter listed all the significant players that are out this week, and he had Lamar Jackson as the number 1 guy. But on that list was DeAndre Swift, who he said was not playing for the Bears. He said they tweeted that out this morning. And whatever happened, Swift ended up playing, but he ended up with, I believe, 11 carries for 45 yards and scored the touchdown. It's a pretty good outing for a guy, but he really didn't play a ton to open the game. In fact, Mannelly, I believe, got his first start, the rookie.
No, Swift did start. He did play the first play, but it was that boot, and then Mannelly got the first carry, which was the next play. I thought the same thing, too, but I got that clarified. So Swift did start.
Oh, he did?
Okay. But he did not play.
Mannelly got the first.
Yes.
Okay. Well, whatever it was, 11 carries isn't quite it. And I think when you look at what they did a week ago to beat the Saints, they dominated in the running game. They got a lot out of Swift, and they got a lot out of Kyle Mannelly. Mannelly had 7 carries for 24 yards. Mm-hmm. And you look at their running statistics. So DJ Moore carried the ball twice for 3 yards, and Caleb had 3 carries for 24 yards. And technically his 8 yards per carry was the best they did. 4.1 for Swift on the 11 carries, 3.4 for Mannelly. That's just not as good as they had done a week before.
Yeah, and you go into the game, right, and you say, okay, Swift's a little dinged up, and we talked about on the pregame having Cole Kmet out.
Yeah.
And what was going to be the adjustment without Cole Kmet? Because they use him a lot in the run game. So they went to Ozzie Trapillo a lot, bringing extra tackle in. He even did some motioning. Didn't look too bad, the big man in motion, trying to run plays with him. But, of course, when you lose your Swiss Army knife, right, Pat, in the run game, Baltimore's got theirs back in Patrick Ricard. And you saw a couple times, I remember one time him against T.J. Edwards. He won that battle. I'm sure T.J. Edwards won a few battles himself today too. But just the fact that the Ravens seem to get a little more healthy, and the Bears, their run game may be affected a little bit by injuries to key guys, right? Swift. And look, no one wants to hear those excuses. We know that, Pat, right? No one wants to hear that, okay, Cole Kmet's hurt, DeAndre Swift's a little banged up. Two guys very important in the Bears run game. They don't get as much as you wanted them to get today against a front that was giving up a lot of yards in rushing.
Yep. I think the post-game press conference with Ben Johnson will be interesting today because there's going to be a lot of questions that might be or could be answered about DeAndre Swift. How much did you really miss Cole Kmet? Will he expand on that? Because you're right, Cole Kmet has been the Swiss Army knife for this offense. It's been interesting to see how they use him, and he's been playing well, not just a guy that can line up and do many different things. He's been doing them very, very well. But you look at the numbers here, just the numbers. It's not a terrible game by the Bears, but I want to go back. They just looked discombobulated. Everything just was not flowing right. They couldn't get it all together.
You got to find points.
You got to find points in the red zone, and that's just. It seemed like they could get there at some points, and then the other times they were kicking them or shooting themselves in the foot. But it just didn't. There wasn't good flow to this offense today.
Caleb ended up with 285 yards passing, which I'm not sure. That's about as good as he's done this year. He was 25 for 38. For 38 is a lot of passes.
Well, how much was on that DJ Moore pass?
Well, that was
right?
it.
And that's some of the extra yards, what people call rubbish yards. But
yes,
the offense again just
42 yards.
Not points, and again giving up 30 points to Tyler Huntley, which it's going to be RPO, zone read, play action pass. Now look, defense severely undermanned by the time the last whistle is blown. Right, without their cornerbacks, without some of their D linemen, was hoping today going into the game. We talked about. Can Caleb and the offense be the reason why we win the game? Not win with the offense, not win with Caleb winners, but win why. That's why we won the game today, because our offense scored this amount of points, controlled the game, controlled the time of the possession, didn't turn the ball over, put the ball in the end zone, put the game away against the Tyler Huntley-led Baltimore Ravens.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, in the old days, if you could hold a team below 17 points, that was the number one goal of a defense. Now we're in 2025, and these offenses are putting up massive amounts of points, and you held them under 17 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good look for the Bears offense
not at all.
in any fashion, and I think we will hear that from the head coach when we do play his audio. Okay, we've got to take a quick timeout. We should let you know that we're broadcasting live from Timothy O'Toole's Pub in Gurnee. Join the Score and Circa Sports Illinois out here today. If you could have watched the game, a lot of people did. Hang around. We're going to do a 2-hour post-game show. We're just getting started. We will get to the phone lines as well. We usually get a lot of good callers whenever the Bears don't win. 312-644-6767 is the number. And we will be right back.